Salutations, my Fallout lovers. It is Matty here today with another Fallout 4 news update. It's like just before the launch of Fallout 4 again, where there's tons and tons of news updates. Today we're going to be getting an extended look at Fallout 4's survival mode. This came from a Reddit post which people initially thought to be fake until Bethesda Game Studios Twitter came out and said, "Our fans are too smart. Early look at Fallout 4 survival mode on Reddit." We're still messing with it and there's more to come. So this isn't the full details of the survival mode, but it's most of them. As you can tell by the description, it's kind of a consensus of what to expect when you sign up for this mode. Anyway, I just find it hilarious how Bethesda's like, yep, you caught us red-handed. Usually they don't encourage these leaks, but they're like, whatever. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about, so let's dive straight in. Starting off with something that we're familiar with, saving. Manual and quick saving are disabled. To save your game, you'll need to find a bed and sleep for at least an hour. So this isn't anything new to us. We found this out from an interview with Todd Howard on Game Informer, that in order to save our game, we're going to have to sleep in a bed. Interesting mechanic. Hopefully it works out in practice. Now let's move on to the next one. Combat is more lethal for everyone now. You now deal but also take more damage. You can increase the damage you deal even further with adrenaline, which we'll get into later, which is a new mechanic added just for survival mode. But anyway, combat is more lethal and you deal more damage, but you also take more damage. So it sounds a lot like the realistic weapons damage mod from Fallout 3 and New Vegas. I really like what I'm seeing here. I know I'm a bit skeptical about it because I did mention this in a previous video, but hopefully it's properly balanced out where I'm not just dying in two shots. But I do like how we deal what we take. So at least if we're smart in gunfights, we should be able to live. But it's interesting to have that upped ante now that we know we can die so fast. Fast travel. Fast travel is disabled. If you wish to be somewhere, you'll have to physically travel there. Now they don't mention any alternate fast travel methods, such as the vertibird, such as the Institute teleporter, which are ideas that my viewers were discussing a couple of days ago. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if that's possible. But then I started thinking to myself that it was going to kind of shoehorn you down that specific path, right? Where you had to either join the Institute or you had to join the Brotherhood of Steel, because with the Institute you get that teleporter, but then you lose it if you go against them. So I'm wondering to myself if there is going to be that alternate fast travel. Will there be that horse and buggy system like in Skyrim? I don't know. It seems like you have to physically go anywhere you want to go, and that may sound unfair, but ladies and gentlemen, it is a survival mode, and I like doing this personally. I do this anyways. I love going physically from place to place. Maybe not corner to corner on the map, don't get me wrong there, but I have no problem physically traveling places. I'd imagine maybe there's some way to alternately fast travel that you can earn, but you know what? I wouldn't go in there and expecting it, because Fallout 4 is a big world, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see people physically going everywhere they want to go. If they want to go back to an area, will they waste that time going back there, or will they have to make sure they get absolutely everything while they're there because they don't plan on coming back at all and just staying quest focused? It's going to add an interesting dynamic if you can only physically go anywhere you want to go. Here's something that may be more familiar for you New Vegas hardcore players: weighted ammo. Bullets and shells now have a small amount of weight, which varies by caliber. Heavier items such as fusion cores, rockets, and mini nukes can really drag you down. Now we should be familiar with the bullets, with the shells, and all this other stuff having weight, but I think what's interesting is the fusion cores. I don't know about you guys, but I carry like over 100 with me at a time, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'm hopping in the power armor anytime it runs out of battery. I'm just gonna pop in a new fusion core, right? Wrong. Now you have to kind of take into account when you hop into that power armor, all right, I'll take like 2 or 3 with me, you know, just to make sure that I have just enough to get done what I need to get done and then bring it back. Because remember, you have to physically travel everywhere you go, so you have to have enough to go to but back as well. So you have to take into consideration that. So I think it's quite interesting that the fusion cores actually have weight, so it makes it really intense when you're traveling. I wonder how much they weigh. Maybe like half a pound each. That would kind of make some good sense right there. Maybe a pound each. I'm really curious how they're going to balance this one out, because they're considering it a heavier item, so I could be wrong. It could be like 5 pounds each. It's supposed to power armor anyway, so you never really know. But anyway, I think that's the most interesting dynamic of this weighted section, because we obviously know that they're gonna have the weighted ammo. We kind of expected that, but now you also have to take into account the miscellaneous items for the weapon crafting, for the settlement mode if you plan on doing that as well, because you're going to be able to craft water, you're going to be able to bring in food to your settlement. So it's going to be important to invest in your settlement in this mode, but you're also going to be having weighted ammo, weighted fusion cores, all that stuff. So it's going to really make you think about what you pick up. Getting even more interesting, compass. Be sure to keep your eyes peeled, as enemies will no longer appear on your compass. As well, the distance at which locations of interest will appear has been significantly shortened. So it really is enforcing using your eyes, essentially removing the original perception skills from the previous Fallout games, which I find really cool because you're gonna have to look for the enemy. You can't just go ahead and do what I do, which is, I can't see where the enemy is, I'm gonna glance down at the compass, line up my character, and look up and down until I see them, right? Wrong. Can't do that anymore. And what I think is even more interesting is that they shorten the distance of which areas of interest appear. Now, why is this important? Because when you're looking for that place to sleep, that place to gather resources, you have to look with your eyes now. You can't just look at the compass and then follow that marker. You have to get close to it. You have to use your eyes and be like, huh, that's an area right there, I think. And let me go closer. And then all of a sudden it'll appear on your compass. You'll be like, all right, this is a place that I can get resources from. It sounds like a little thing, but it's actually going to be a big difference, I think, in our playthroughs. Now, I mentioned this earlier, adrenaline. Survival automatically grants the adrenaline perk, which provides a bonus to your damage output. Unlike other perks, the only way to increase your rank of the adrenaline perk is by getting kills, hostile or otherwise. The higher your adrenaline rank, the higher the damage bonus. Sleeping for more than an hour, however, will cause your adrenaline rank to lower. You can check your current adrenaline rank at any time in the perks section on the stat tab in your Pip-Boy. So really interesting dynamic here, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Because now as we go around, we're killing things in the wasteland like we normally do. We're building up that adrenaline rank. We have a great adrenaline rank. We're doing 2 shots to enemies now. But our character's starting to get fatigued. We need sleep. So we have to go to a bed and sleep. We have to save our game, so we definitely have to go to a bed at some point. We sleep for an hour. Our character's still fatigued, but we only lost 1 rank of our adrenaline. Is it worth it just to go all in, sleep a couple more hours, remove the fatigue from your character, or do you want to keep that damage bonus? This is the interesting change that survival mode offers now, because we can have this damage bonus that gives us that leg up of already having increased damage, but doing even more, maybe for when you run into those legendary enemies, when you run into those higher level enemies, when you run into an area where the enemies could actually kill you. Will that adrenaline perk make the difference? Do you need it at all times is the real question you're going to have to answer for yourself, and when you want to get rid of it. You have to keep into account what quests you're going to be doing. Will you need that damage bonus for that quest? Stuff like this. Like, for example, when you're taking over the castle for the Minutemen, when the giant Mirelurk Queen pops up, you're probably going to want to make sure you have a good adrenaline bonus. But you also want to make sure you save your game before that, right? So you have to be really smart about how you manage this adrenaline rank. Wellness. I mentioned this a little bit before with sleeping. You'll find it difficult to survive without taking proper care of yourself. You must stay hydrated, fed, rested to remain combat ready. Going for extended periods of time without food, water, or sleep will begin to adversely affect your health, hurting your special stats, adding to your fatigue, and we'll talk about fatigue in a little bit, lowering your immunity, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and eventually dealing physical damage to you. So basically, this is something that should be standard for New Vegas hardcore players. Drink your water, eat your food, sleep in your beds. You should be okay, but sometimes you don't have enough of that stuff because, once again, food has weight, water has weight. You have to find the beds, which may be scarce. You know, you got to keep all this stuff in mind. So we talked about fatigue a lot. What exactly is it? Fatigue works like radiation, but affects your action points rather than your hit points. The more fatigue you've built up, the less AP you'll have for other actions. The amount of fatigue you've accumulated is displayed in red on your AP bar. So if the comparison wasn't obvious enough, just take what happens when you get radiation in Fallout 4. It takes up some of your health bar, and just take that same concept, and as you're exploring the world, getting fatigued, that starts to kind of increment into your AP bar. That's exactly how it works. I think this is another interesting aspect because now you can't sprint anywhere, but more importantly, it impacts VATS. VATS is going to be crucial in this mode to survive, and it's obviously very important that you have a full action points bar, and if you don't because you're fatigued, you might be able to not get off that last shot that you'll need to make or break a life and not have to go back to a certain point. We also talked about sickness a little bit. What exactly is that? A comprised immune system and a few questionable decisions can end up getting you killed. Eating uncooked meat, drinking unpurified water, taking damage from disease-ridden sources such as ghouls and bugs, or using harmful chems all put your body at increased risk for various ill effects. When you are afflicted with an illness, a message will appear on screen. You can view specifics about your current illness by navigating to the status section of your Pip-Boy's data tab and pressing the R shoulder to view your active effects. So, basically, when you get attacked by a ghoul or a bug, you can get some type of disease. When you drink unpurified water, which you may have to at times, if you're out of water but your character's thirsty, you may have to drink unpurified water. eating uncooked meat. You may be out of stim packs, but you need to heal up, and the only meat you have is uncooked from a Yao Guai you just killed or something like that. You may have to eat that. That could give you a disease, and basically these diseases add up and can end up getting you killed. What exactly these effects are of these diseases, I have absolutely no idea. But also even putting chems into your body, so I wonder if the chemist rank 2 perk is going to have any type of effect on your character, which I believe is the one that makes sure that you don't become addicted to chems. Does that mean that there's still that negative impact of using chems where you're putting these needles into your body and stuff? Does it now make it go so that you're like, well shit, I don't even see a point in using chems because I'm going to end up getting sick anyways? But sometimes push may come to shove, you may have to use them anyways. So it's very interesting how we're gonna have to balance diseases as well. But when there's sickness, there's obviously some type of cure out there. Antibiotics, which can be crafted at the chem station or purchased from doctors, heal the various effects of sickness. So when you are sick, there is a way to get rid of it, but you're gonna have to find a chem station or a doctor, and we all know just how scarce doctors are in the wasteland. In my opinion, the only place I can think of is in Diamond City where a doctor is. I've also encountered one other one during a Brotherhood of Steel questline. He was just out in the open world, but it's the only one that really comes to mind. So doctors are scarce, so you have to make sure that you have a chem station nearby somewhere, and you also have to make sure you take good care of yourself, because once again, take into account that you can't fast travel to and from places if you only have a chem station back at Sanctuary Hills and you're all the way in the middle of the map. You're basically screwed. You're gonna have to find a doctor somewhere, so it really is going to be intense. Bed types. The type of bed you're sleeping in determines the length of time you are able to stay asleep. A sleeping bag will save your game and may help save your life when you're desperate, but will not allow for a full night's rest and the benefits that come along with it. So basically, different beds offer different types of perks and bonuses, which we all should kind of imagine is going to be like when you go into the settlement mode system, you'll see all these different bed models that don't seem to do anything different. Perhaps when you sleep in each different bed, there's a different perk that kind of comes along with it. Maybe some will just make sure you're granted automatically well rested. Maybe one will retain your adrenaline perk. Stuff like this could come into account. So it's really interesting that sometimes it's like, well shit, I need to sleep in my bed and I need to save my game, but this is just a sleeping bag. Will I just keep looking for a new bed, or will I just say screw it and get my rest and make sure my game is at least saved so that I can just live another day if I end up dying? These are the choices you're gonna have to make. Stumbling back into familiar territory, crippled limbs. Crippled limbs will no longer auto heal after combat and will remain crippled until healed by a stim pack. Sounds roughly familiar. We all had to do that with New Vegas Hardcore, but I gotta say, I had no idea that limbs auto-healed after combat in the normal mode. Go figure. Carry weight. This one is really interesting. Exceeding your carry weight reduces your endurance and agility stats naturally, and periodically damages your legs and health. Think of your back. My goodness, so if we're encumbered, which we naturally will be at some point, we can just break our knees out there, man. We can break our knees, break our back, man. Oh my goodness. So now carry weight not only can be a hindrance to us, like, damn, I need to drop something. It can hurt us if we're just insistent on carrying an additional amount of weight. If you have the strong back highest rank perk, then basically you can run around and not really have the effects of encumbrance, but you'll still lose action points. So you can get around. So then you start thinking to yourself, well, damn, am I just going to run back to my base, or am I going to have to just drop stuff that I desperately need? Companions will no longer automatically get back up if down during combat and will return home if abandoned without being healed. This is the only problem I can see rising up in the Fallout community, is the idea that companions cannot die. I think it's because Fallout 4 is such a dynamic game. You have so many moving parts. You have so many different random encounters that can happen. You can easily lose your companion. It'll just lead to rage. People complaining about that anyway. I'd rather, if they go down, they're gone. I'd have to run back to my settlement or whatever and get them back, which is obviously a pain in the ass in its own right, making it so that you have to try to keep your companions alive. You can't just keep sticking them with stim packs when they're down on the ground. You can't just be like, oh, they'll get up after the combat. It doesn't really matter. And quite frankly, I probably will just do the Lone Wanderer perk for my survival playthrough, because to tell you the truth, I think that would be the smarter way to go instead of having the companion just end up dying anyway, right? And last but certainly not least, enemy and loot repopulation. If you did not know, in Fallout 4, areas repopulate, enemies move into certain areas after a certain period of time, and you can re-loot them, making it helpful to level up and also acquire new resources that you may need for whatever you want want to do. Locations you've cleared will now repopulate enemies and loot at a significantly slower rate, which means that the world will be a less dangerous place as you go from place to place as long as you're killing things. And I really like this idea because it makes it so that if I'm like, oh crap, I forgot something, and I go back a few minutes later, that enemies haven't just repopulated it instantly. I wonder if you sleep for an hour, is that when they repopulate or something like that? I think, like they said, it's at a slower rate, so I believe if we forget something, we can always go back, such as a magazine or a bobblehead, whatever, maybe some pieces of material that we're going to need to bring back to our settlement, stuff along those lines. But nonetheless, this has been a long update on the full details for survival mode. Obviously more is to come, probably when Bethesda officially announces when it's coming, and they probably put the inevitable Bethesda net post up on the internet, so I look forward to that. But for now, we basically know everything we need to hop into survival mode. So what do you think of this huge slew of details? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. The links are in the description. Check out sugarbomb.com, the place by Bethesda fans for Bethesda fans. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.